Hello dear students, welcome back to the 10th CBSE Social Science lecture, and as last time we'll continue with history textbook. And in history last time we already read few topics of Unit 2, that is nationalism in India, and the major topic within the chapter that we were reading was differing strands within the movement. So students, again I'll ask the same question, which movement we are talking about here? Yes, very good, absolutely correct. We are talking about the non-cooperation movement that was started by Gandhiji, and he convinced all the Congress leaders to start the non-cooperation movement in the month of January 1921. And then we started understanding within this topic that differing strands means differing means different and strands means ends. So the movement that was for achieving Swaraj, but the definition of Swaraj were different for different groups of people, different classes of the people, different social groups participated in non-cooperation movement, but everybody had a different, yes, everybody had a varied or different opinion or definition of Swaraj. We understood how the people in the towns participated in Swaraj, expected something else, but when that didn't happen, they their involvement or their enthusiasm for the non-cooperation movement declined, and they went back to the schools and colleges, to the courts, and we also understood how they avoided first, how they boycotted foreign goods and foreign clothes, but when the Indian clothes were expensive, they switched on again to the foreign clothes or foreign goods. We understood how the people of, yes, countryside, that is the peasants of our, we understood by their example how they saw the term Swaraj. What was their definition of Swaraj? For them, Swaraj or non-cooperation movement was, yes, so they wanted to achieve Swaraj, they wanted to participate in non-cooperation movement, but for them non-cooperation movement was not against Britishers, it was against the talukdars and the landlords who were exploitative, who used to charge high rent and revenues or seizes from these poor peasants, and that's why these poor peasants went on to organize protest movements, and in their protest movement, yes, they raised few demands. Later on, this protest movement was also joined by Jawaharlal Nehru, and they formed all Kisan Sabha with its multiple almost 300 branches across the region Awadh. And who was their main leader? Baba Ramchandra, along with, yes, Jawaharlal Nehru. But Congress, yes, Congress kept a distance from this particular movement because this movement was not against Britishers, it was against the talukdars and landlords, and instead of being against the Britishers. Today also we'll understand a different definition of the word Swaraj, of the term Swaraj. And here also we'll be talking about the people living in the countryside, that is the rural area, the villages and the tribal region. And today we'll talk about two important working section of the society, two important groups of social groups, those who live in the forest area or work in the forest area. First we'll understand what was the definition of people living in the forest area, that is tribals, from the example of tribal revolt of Andhra Pradesh. So what happened in Andhra Pradesh? There is a hill area in Andhra Pradesh named as Gudem Hills, and many tribals lived in this hilly area, that is which area? Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh. Who lived there? The tribals lived there, and here the tribals, when they started their protest movement against the Britishers, they did not follow the path of Gandhiji, that is peace and non-violence. Rather, the tribals living in the Gudem Hills adopted another warfare. Warfare is the way you fight a war, the way you initiate a war. What is the stand? What is your stand in the war? The strategy that you take in the war is called as warfare. And the warfare that was adapted by whom? Yes, tribal people of Gudem Hills in Andhra Pradesh was, yes, a militant guerrilla movement that started in 1920s. I'll explain you the meaning of the word militant. Militant, whenever this word is used, militant, it means the people are fighting with the help of arms and ammunitions against the government, against the people, those who are there in power. If you are fighting against these people with the help of arms and ammunitions, that is again unlawful, that is against the law, it would be called as militant. And guerrilla, Guerrilla warfare is a special warfare where people hide within the forest area. People cover their body with the leaves, with the sand, with mud, and then they hide there in the forest area, in the trees, among the trees, and fight their war. This is called as a hidden war. That is how they revolted, which is known as guerrilla warfare. And this militant guerrilla warfare was started by tribals of Gudem Hills in the 1920s. Now, we need to understand why these people participated in such revolt, why they had to take up arms against the Britishers. You must have read in your standard 9th history textbook that how Britishers brought the unjust forest laws, and due to these forest laws, what had happened, due to the Forest Act and various forest laws, Britishers threw away the local tribal people, the forest dwellers, those who lived within the forest. They were thrown out of their forest area. That was considered as to be motherland. Their entire livelihood also dependent on the forest. But with the coming of this Forest Act that was implemented by the British government, these forest dwellers, that is the tribals, were thrown away from their own land and deprived of their own rights. There were many restrictions that came along with the Forest Act. And what were these restrictions? That is the forest area, large part of the reserved forest, that is the best quality of forest, was closed down for the locals, for the tribals. What all things they could not do now in the forest that they had been doing since centuries, that was, they were prevented entry into the forest. None of the tribal people were allowed to enter into the forest. They were even disallowed from what? Disallowed from taking their cattle to graze in the forest area, and they were forbidden from collecting fuel wood and fruits from the forest. So if they won't collect fuel woods, how they would burn the wood and cook for themselves? Neither they could have collected any kind of fruits or any other forest products. That was what the forest dwellers considered as to be their birth, right? Because they had dwelt in the forest since thousands of years. Their ancestors lived there. Their entire livelihood, their house, their land, their agricultural land, everything is there in the forest, and they take care of the forest, and in return forest gives them with all these resources like fruits, like medicines, various types of herbs, shrubs, and various other things. So that was how their life sustained, that was the way they lived, that was the part of their culture and civilization. But when coming of the Forest Act, with the implementation of this particular act, these tribals in many parts of India were evacuated, were thrown away from their own land, and this thing hurt whom? The tribal people. And that's why tribal people in many parts of the countries, they started the revolt by themselves. One such revolt also started in the Gudem Hills. So the people in the Gudem Hills, what they started doing? They started revolting. But there was another reason why these people were revolting, because when any tribal was caught doing any of these things, that is, either they tried to enter the forest, or they tried to take their cattle into the forest, or sometimes they were caught while they were collecting fuel woods or fruits, what they had to do was they were imprisoned. And while in prison, while in jail, these tribal people, what they had to do? They had to do beggar for government. That is, British government used to make them do beggar. Beggar, we learnt it last time also in the peasant movement at our, where free services has to be given to the person. So here tribals were forced to give free services in beggar. To whom? To the British government, where British government forced these tribal people in building of roads. So road building, road construction work was given to whom? To the tribal people. Now this road was constructed from villages, district, connecting to the nearby forest area, so that the good quality of forest wood could be collected by Britishers, and it could be transported easily out of the forest to the villages and district on with the help of these roads. And who were forced to do the construction work of this road, building of these roads? Yes, of course, they were the tribal people. And thus the tribal people in Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh started their revolt. So whenever, now you have understood the reason why the people of Gudem Hills revolted. Now let us understand how they revolted, and whenever there is a revolt, that is a fact that there is a leader also. So let us understand about the leader and his qualities, how did he inspire other people, and whether they were able to achieve success in their revolt or not. So first of all, the leader of Gudem Hill tribal was an interesting figure. When you read about him in the history, you will be surprised that is it possible, these things are possible or not. But it is believed in the local areas, and many people believe that their leader, who was the leader of Gudem Hills tribal revolt, Alluri Sitaram Raju. I am repeating the name of the leader of Gudem Hills revolt. Yes, Alluri Sitaram Raju. And now why he was considered as an interesting figure and as an interesting personality? Because he claimed that he have some special powers. Yes, he had some special powers. You must have heard about some of the people having some special powers. We may call them, these are fictional obviously, that is superheroes, and he claimed that he was a superhero. He had some special powers, and the special powers that he had was, first, he could make correct predictions, astrological predictions. Predictions means forecasting in advance. You say something that this is going to happen in the future, what would happen after a month, what would happen after a year. Those types of correct astrological predictions were made by Alluri Sitaram Raju. He also claimed that he had the special power to heal the people. Heal means to treat the people. If you have got some kind of injury over your bones, or maybe your joints or hamstring injury, he would treat you by his special power. He could, yes, cure the illness, cure the problems. That is he could make you recover from the, yes, physical problem. And third, and the most interesting claim was, he could even survive the bullet shots. That is, if the rifle or the pistol was fired against him, on him, what would happen? That bullet could hit him, but he won't die due to the bullet. That is, he could survive the bullet shots. So which were the three claims that were made by Alluri Sitaram Raju? First, he could make correct astrological predictions. Second, he could heal the people. Third, he could even survive the bullet shots. But Alluri Sitaram Raju was so popular among the local tribals that the local tribals of Gudem Hills also claimed that he was just not an ordinary man. He was an incarnation of God. Where the word incarnation might be new for few of you. Let me tell you the meaning of that word incarnation in Hindi. It is called as avatar. So many people considered Alluri Sitaram Raju, that is the local people, those who are crazily following Alluri Sitaram Raju, as to be what? They claimed, locals proclaimed him as the incarnation of God, that is the avatar of God. Even Raju, Alluri Sitaram Raju, had been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi a lot, and that's why many a times he asked the people to join non-cooperation movement, that is NCM, to follow the path of Gandhiji. He also requested people to wear khadi and to give up drinking habit, that is consuming alcohol. But only one thing he differed from that of Gandhiji was that Gandhiji always followed the path of peace and non-violence, whereas Alluri Sitaram Raju believed that the freedom cannot be achieved unless they would use force. So if they would be using force, then only freedom could be achieved, and that's why he never followed the path of non-violence. He rather adopted violence, and under his leadership, the tribals of Gudem Hills attacked the police stations. They even killed British officers, those who had harmed the tribals earlier, and they adopted the path of non-violence. Rejected the path of they adopted the path of violence and rejected the path of non-violence. And what they wanted to do, they wanted to achieve Swaraj. But how they wanted to achieve Swaraj? They carried on the guerrilla warfare. I explained you in the starting of today's lecture what is guerrilla warfare, where people, the attackers, those who want to conduct a war, those who want to wage a war, they hide themselves in the forest area, they apply the mud on their body, or they cover themselves with leaves, they hide among the trees that are dense, or they dig a pit in the ground and hide there and cover the pit with, yes, with the leaves, and then they attack their enemies. This is the guerrilla warfare that was carried on by the tribals of Gudem Hills under the leadership of Alluri Sitaram Raju. Later on, Britishers suppressed this tribal movement in Gudem Hills. Alluri Sitaram Raju was captured, he was arrested and later on executed in the year 1924. So when was Alluri Sitaram Raju arrested and executed? He was arrested and executed in the year 1924. But over the time, as the time went by, he became a folk hero, a local hero. Today also, if you go to the same place, if you visit sometimes these Gudem Hills areas, you will find his statues constructed in the villages. In Telugu language, they have written poetries about Alluri Sitaram Raju. They considered him as incarnation of God, as their savior, somebody who was sent by God to save these people. And there are stories, folk stories about Alluri Sitaram Raju and his great adventures that are told to every young generation by their elder generation, by their previous generation. So here we have understood how tribal people saw the word Swaraj. For them, Swaraj in the non-cooperation movement, that is to achieve Swaraj through non-cooperation movement, had a different meaning. Here Swaraj didn't mean the freedom of entire country for tribals. Swaraj meant their rights to live in the forest, to use forest products, to cultivate in forest area, to roam freely in forest was their right, and that should be given to them. And for that they were going to do this movement, and they did that movement. And this is how they wanted to achieve Swaraj. So we again understood a different definition of Swaraj. Now moving ahead from tribal area, that is tribal people, now we'll be talking about the working class people, that is the workers, laborers, those who worked in the plantation area. So how these people saw Swaraj, and what was the meaning of Swaraj for plantation workers of Assam. So students, now let us try to understand that what was the definition of the term Swaraj during the non-cooperation movement. For whom? For the plantation workers. Especially we will be talking about the plantation workers of Assam. Now what is a plantation? Plantation is a type of cultivation where cash crops are grown like tea, coffee, rubber, etc. Mostly in the hilly terrains where the atmosphere and the climatic conditions are a bit different from that of plain area. So we will be talking about, yes, the plantation workers of Assam, those who used to work in tea gardens, in growing the tea, plucking the tea leaves and collecting them, and also helping in the loading and unloading of the tea leaves. And these, most of the plantation workers, those who worked in the plantations, that is tea gardens in Assam, were not originally from Assam. They were brought to Assam from some or the other places, from some or the other, yes, villages and states or regions of India. And they used to work for plantation owners, and most of these plantation owners, either they were Britishers or they were Europeans having good terms and relations with, yes, the British government. But when the news of non-cooperation movement, yes, when the news of non-cooperation movement reached these plantation workers, when they heard about Gandhiji, they responded to the call of Swaraj. But the term Swaraj had a different meaning for the plantation workers of Assam as well. Here, it again didn't mean the freedom. Swaraj didn't mean for plantation workers of Assam the freedom of the entire country. So let us try to understand what was the pathetic condition, miserable condition of the people, that is plantation workers of Assam. How did they demand for relaxment. What was their definition of Swaraj, and did they achieve it or not? So the plantation workers, those who are working in Assam, freedom meant different. That is, Swaraj had a different definition. For them, freedom meant was right to move freely in and out of a confined area. Where the word confined means closed area, an enclosed area which was guarded, which was patrolled. That is, guarded by whom? Guarded by, yes, of course, the British officers, the British guards, the British police. And these plantation workers, in whichever tea garden they used to work in, they had to only work in that tea garden. After the work of the day ended, they cannot go back home like the normal workers can go back home after their work. They were not allowed to go back home. They had to live in the small cottages, that were huts rather, and there itself near the plantation. Every morning they had to come at a particular time, or if they didn't come, they were beaten up, brought there for work. Every evening, till late evening, they used to work until the sun used to set, and then they were sent back again, surrounded by whom? Surrounded by the guards. So the entire area was confined. Confined means restricted, enclosed. Nobody else was allowed to move in or out. And where they were enclosed means they were kept as a prisoner. They were kept as if they were bonded laborers. It means freedom, that is Swaraj. Also meant retaining, that is continuing. Yes, if something you have retained, it means you have continued that. So they wanted to retain link with the villages from which they had come. So I told you earlier in this topic that these all people, those who used to work in the plantation, did not necessarily belong to Assam or the nearby villages. They came from far away regions and villages of the country. Some of them were brought there as, yes, as workers, as laborers, or in simple terms you can call them as bonded laborers, those who had to work there until their punishment got over. But for these people, for these less literate people, the most important thing for them was freedom. And what did freedom mean for them? There are two different definitions of freedom for them. First, they wanted freedom to move in and out of the confined area where they worked. And second, they wanted to retain, that is continue the link, that is bond with the villages from where they belong. They should be allowed to go back to their villages, spend some time there and come back here. But this was not done. Why it was not done? Because there was a law that was passed by Britishers in the mid of the 19th century. That was the Inland Emigration Act of 1859. What this law was, inland means within the land, that is within the country. Emigration means movement of people from one place to another place. An act means obviously a law. So there was a law regarding the movement of people within the country, and under this law, whosoever was a worker and brought by British government as a punishment from some other area to some other area, that is from these mostly people were brought from Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, these tribal areas where the tribals were arrested, and as a punishment they were taken to Assam, where they had to do huge amount of hard work in these plantation areas. Males and females both were brought here, and under this law they were not allowed, that is this particular law, Inland Emigration Act, that was brought by British government in the year 1859. It didn't allow workers, which type of workers? Plantation workers, to leave tea gardens without permission. And the permission, when these people went there to ask for the permission, they were rarely given permission. Out of 100 workers, the ratio was almost 2 workers were given permission, that also for few days, to go back to their villages if somebody was very serious or ill in their village, and they would have to come back there again. And in return, some of the other family member was kept there in the plantation area, amongst the plantation workers, so that the person who has gone to the village would obviously come back here. So again, an unjust law of the British we can see here, due to which they used to exploit the poor laborers and workers. But when these laborers, when these workers working in the plantation area in Assam, they heard about Gandhiji, they heard about the non-cooperation movement that was launched by Gandhiji, in which nobody has to cooperate to the Britishers. We need to oppose the cooperation given to the Britishers. We need to deny working for Britishers. There was a wave of celebration, a wave of jubilance, enthusiasm amongst the plantation workers. They saw it as a hope of a new freedom that they always wanted to have. They thought that Gandhi Raj was coming. That is Gandhi Raj. Gandhi, that is Mahatma Gandhi, and Raj means rule. So whose rule is coming? British rule is going. Yes, Britishers will be thrown away from our country. We will achieve Swaraj. And Swaraj meant Gandhi Raj for them. And under this Gandhi Raj means everything would be great. Everything would be fair. Everything would be equal, and justice would be served, where each and every individual who was taken there as worker, as laborer, some of them as prisoners, some of them as they didn't have work, they were taken at plantation area. They thought that everyone would be given land in their own villages, and that's why after hearing about the non-cooperation movement, thousands of workers, that is in plantation area, they defied the authorities. Defied means disobeyed the authorities, disobeyed the law, that is Inland Immigration Act, disobeyed all the system, and they ran away in thousands of number from where? From plantation areas of Assam. But did they running away from where? From the plantation area serve them good? What they got? Did they get their desired result, that is Swaraj, or did they get land in their own villages, what they hoped for? Did they ever reach their villages? So it was not. Yes, they never reached their villages, though they ran away from the plantation area. But when they reached a particular point from where they had to take up the railways or the steamer services to reach their own areas, to reach the region from where they belong to or to their villages, they saw another thing that was shocking for these plantation workers. That was that even the railway workers and the steamer workers were on strike. So the railways and steamers were not functioning. So if plantation workers, they heard about non-cooperation movement, they defied the authorities and wanted to go back home, they headed towards their home. Same thing was done by the people those who worked in British railways and the people those who worked for steamer services. Those people also joined the non-cooperation movement and did not work for railways. They left their work. So the railways came to a halt. Even the steamer services was not functioning, and that's why these workers who left the plantation area to go to their home were stranded on the way, were left alone on the way without any other further mode of transportation. And this allowed the British authorities and the British police to reach these places to arrest these workers, those who have left the plantation area, and after their arrest they were brutally beaten up, that is very cruelly beaten up. They were punished as well and taken back again to the plantation area. So the Swaraj that they wanted to achieve, though they wanted to support in the non-cooperation movement, but the conditions didn't allow them to do so. That's why these people, that is the people those who used to work in the plantation area, also had to face huge amount of problem. So here we have understood that four things: the people those who lived in towns, the people those who lived in rural area of Awadh, the tribal peasants in Gudem hills of Andhra Pradesh, and the plantation workers of Assam. Everybody had different notions and ideas of Swaraj. Though they all participated in the non-cooperation movement, but for each one of them, non-cooperation movement was to achieve, yes, but of course Swaraj. But everybody had a different vision, a different idea of Swaraj. And this different idea of Swaraj, when it meant different things for the people, many a times their goals of achieving Swaraj clashed with one another. But still, when everybody, after the call of Gandhiji, came to see Swaraj as a common vision. Though different people had different ideas of Swaraj, different meaning of Swaraj, but they all, when they shouted commonly a common slogan. And what was the common slogan being spoken and shouted everywhere? Swatantra Bharat. That is where the word Swatantra means free, and obviously Bharat means our beloved motherland, our country, India. And people everywhere, rich or poor, people living in towns or people living in rural areas, educated, uneducated, whether they were owners or they were plantation workers, farmers, everybody participated, including the students, the women, the youth, elderly people, working community, working man, everybody participated in the non-cooperation movement that was started by Gandhiji in the month of January 1921. But in the month of February 1922, this particular movement was called off by Gandhiji. Why? It has not been mentioned in your textbook. There is just a picture given about the Chauri Chaura incident, and I explain you the reason why this movement was called off, suspended by Gandhiji. So there was on 5th of February 1922, there was a crowd of people that was protesting in one of the villages of Gorakhpur district of Uttar Pradesh. The name of the village is Chauri Chaura. A peaceful protest was taken up by, yes, peasants of that particular village, where they shouted slogans like Swatantra Bharat, Vande Mataram, and they want freedom, they want justice. And at the same time period, some officers of the British police, British Indian police rather I should say, came there. They started firing on these peaceful protesters, in which few of these peaceful protesters, yes, they lost their life. Many of them got injured, and they kept on firing these police officers until their cartridges, their bullets got over. But once their bullet got over, as this protest was taking place at a crowded place in a market area, there were hundreds and thousands of people. Now this thing angered the people that the peaceful protesters were fired, and that's why this crowd, this mob that went crazy, they wanted to now take revenge, and that's why in order to take revenge of the death of their colleagues, those who were fired upon by the British Indian police officer, they chased this police officer. These police officers were so scared that they knew if they would be caught, they would be beaten up by the people, they would be murdered by the people. So in order to save their life, these policemen, yes, they went into the police station and locked themselves inside the police station for their safety. But the mob was so crazy, in order to take revenge, what they did when they were not able to move inside the police station, they lit the police station from outside. That is, yes, they set the police station on fire from outside, in which 21 policemen were burnt alive. And this horrible news, when it reached everywhere across the nation, right on the next day, this horrible news also shocked Mahatma Gandhi, because Mahatma Gandhi always followed the path of non-violence, and by this violent event of burning down the policemen alive was something very terrible, and he was very saddened, and that's why he said that when the people don't understand the meaning of Swaraj, it is understand the meaning of Swaraj, or they don't understand the meaning of peace, non-violence, it is waste to give them this tool of non-violence for Satyagraha. So that's why he called up the non-cooperation movement in the month of February 1922. What happened? NCM, that is non-cooperation movement, was called off, that is suspended. By whom? By Gandhiji. Why? Due to Chauri Chaura incidents. Where is this Chauri Chaura again, students? Yes, it is in Gorakhpur district of Uttar Pradesh, which is in eastern part of Uttar Pradesh, a small village where this violent act took place, and thus non-cooperation movement came to an end in the month of February 1922. So non-cooperation movement continued almost just over a year and a month. In the next lecture, we'll try to understand what happened after the non-cooperation movement was called off by Gandhiji. What was the decision taken by other leaders of Congress, and what all changes took place in the political struggle of India's freedom. I hope you have understood today's topic. Please read both the topic that I explained you today, that is how plantation workers in Assam wanted Swaraj and what was their definition of Swaraj, and even the tribal people of Budem Hills in Andhra Pradesh. Try to make notes of both the points, and both the questions would be there. How the people in tribal areas of Budem Hills reacted to the call of Swaraj. What was the definition? Second question is, what was the definition of Swaraj for plantation workers of Assam? And did they achieve their Swaraj or not? We'll meet in the next lecture. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you.